Are you an immigrant looking for a better recipe for living your ultimate American dream journey? Did you come to America to escape persecution? Or as a tourist, a student, for employment, and found America a welcoming place? Or did you make a conscious decision to relocate for a new experience and opportunities? Whatever the case, you have a story. Are you ready to tell yours and have it recorded in the pages of history for your posterity and the world? Was your decision to live in America the best decision you've ever made? These stories and more on this podcast dedicated to you, the modern explorers to America. We feature amazing navigators weekly to share their story, their journey, their challenges and successes, with one goal of helping you to fast track and live your best American dream journey. So what's your navigating story? And now, here is your host, Bassey Simon, with this episode's featured guest, ready to tell their navigating story.
Hello, Nadvigators. Welcome to episode 15 of the Nadvigators Podcast. This week, I am so thrilled to bring you another amazing story of someone who arrived in Canada with only $5 in her pocket in 2001, and also as a refugee from Zimbabwe. Today, she is a sought-after speaker, mentor, and coach, and she has since turned that $5 into a multi-million-dollar business. It is my pleasure to introduce you to our guest this week, Miss Thembi Becker. Thembi is the founder of She Breaks Through. She believes in helping women reignite their passion, gain more clarity, and reconnect with their bigger purpose. Thembi is heavily involved in empowering women in Africa. As a result, she trains women to work online as virtual assistants. She is on a mission to empower 1 million women by 2025. So money is never a reason a woman is stuck in an abusive relationship. Thembi was voted the Lunch Club, that is Jeff Walker's community spokesperson for the year by over 1,000 entrepreneurs. Thembi has inspired others at live events including PLF Live 2019, LaunchCon 2018, Rain, African Haiti, and the upcoming Inbound 2019. When Thembi is not busy helping women reconnect with their passion and grow their businesses, she enjoys spending time with her two beautiful children and traveling on the road trips. She also volunteers with Kelowna Community Resources, a government organization that helps new immigrants settle in Canada. Thembi currently calls two cities home, shuttling between beautiful Kelowna, Canada, and Bulawayo, Zimbabwe. Navigators. With every successes immigrants make in their new country, I believe there is a unique story behind that success. However you define the success, okay? There is a story about what drives each of us to leave the comfort and security of our upbringing to seek out a new beginning, to dream of a better life, or dream of what's possible. The dreaming part, Navigators, is exactly what our guest did, and I can't wait to hear it. Now, Thembi, welcome to the Nadvigators Podcast. Are you ready to inspire the Nadvigator Nation with your amazing story?
Yes, Navigators, I am Thembi Becker. I'm ready to tell my navigating story on the Nadvigators Podcast, Navigating the American Dream Journey with Bassey Simon. And I can't wait for you to hear it.
I know that your journey seems like it's been paved in gold, okay? But I do also know from your story that it's always not been this way. I heard for the first time a portion of your story. That was about 5 to 6 months ago, as Jeff Walker of the Product Launch Formula fondly featured your amazing story on about going from $5 to a multi-million business. So I just knew then that I wanted to have you tell your complete story, because I knew that was just a part of it. I have to thank you for accepting to come on the show to tell your navigating story. I have given a little bit of information about you, okay? So now take the Navigators Nation through your full navigating journey from Zimbabwe to Canada in your very own words, and fill the gaps that was left out from my introduction, and also tell us a few interesting facts that people do not know about you that you have never shared to anyone.
Absolutely. I'm not going to share all my secrets because there's too many of them, but I do have to share. I do have to say that thank you so much for having me, Bassey. Yes, I did move from Zimbabwe to Canada in 2001 with $5 in my pocket. And how that happened is when I was 5 months pregnant, actually, I discovered my then husband had 2 other wives and 5 children. So I was the third wife. And because of that, I felt that I couldn't stay in that marriage. And also I felt that I needed to create a future for myself and for my daughter. So I left Zimbabwe as a refugee. I came here as a refugee. It was during the political crisis in Zimbabwe. And so that kind of gave me an advantage to come here to Canada. And I landed in Montreal. Some of you might know Montreal. And it was very cold. It was December 1st, and I had the lightest jacket you could ever imagine. And I thought I was going to freeze. But there's something interesting. When I landed in that country, in Canada, I felt so much hope. I felt so much hope for myself, felt so much hope for the women in Zimbabwe, and felt so much hope for my daughter. And the reason is because for the first time ever, I never had to worry about where my food was coming from or who was going to pay the bills, because I stayed at the YMCA. They gave us breakfast, lunch, and supper, and we didn't have to pay rent. And they gave us bus tickets every day to go into the city. So life felt easier. And for the first time, you feel like, finally, I don't have to worry about what I'm going to eat today. I just have to go eat those leaves, which they give us. At that time, I didn't know it was lettuce, but,
They gave you leaves, right?
Yeah, they gave you rabbit leaves, and you're like, okay, I guess I'm going to eat like a rabbit. Yeah, so that really was my journey through that. And eventually I managed to get into nursing school. I trained as a nurse. I became a registered nurse. And through that, I ended up investing in real estate. And that's really where I've been.
Okay. Thank you for that quick summary. And I thank you for sharing a portion of it, even though you don't want to share all of it, but I know you will at some point.
Yes, I will.
So take us through, what was life like for you in Zimbabwe before you decided that you've had enough, you needed to go somewhere?
Life in Zimbabwe changed a lot during my upbringing. I mean, I grew up in a very disadvantaged, I would say poor family, which when I look at it right now really was the regular, maybe not even regular, but yeah, it was poor. It was poor, not trying to justify it. It was a poor family. My mom was a single mom, and we basically survived on her selling tomatoes and all that stuff. So it wasn't a great lifestyle. So I was a very smart kid at school. So I worked hard because I didn't want a life like that. I didn't want to have a life like the life which my mom had. And I worked so hard and eventually managed to pass, and I went to A levels, which we call A levels. Eventually, I managed to get a job right after that. And worked, and it was okay. It wasn't a good lifestyle, but it was decent. And the reason I'm saying it was decent is because comparing to everybody else, it was just the same. It's not like I had when I started working, my life was worse. Some people didn't have jobs, but unemployment was very high. And so I was able to get a job. So I was fortunate to able to get a job, even though it didn't pay all the bills. But at least I had a job. So it was an okay life. Okay to the sense that I was able to save a little money for myself to help me towards my ticket.
Wow. So I definitely think that when you left Zimbabwe then, so all of your family was still there.
Yes, all my family was. So I was the first one to leave the country, and I was the first one to ever be on an airplane in my family. So I left, and I left my daughter. I had a 10-month-old baby at that time. She was 10 months old, and I couldn't bring her with me because I didn't know where I was going. And my mom says, you can't bring her to a strange new place. Just go. And so I left her behind, and I just remember carrying my little luggage, got a bus from Zimbabwe to South Africa, and then bought my plane from South Africa.
Wow. So you had a very attitude of hard work right from the beginning, and so you had this information opened up to you, and you figure out that, wow, I don't want to be in that environment because I don't want to be that same life, because it seems like you got betrayed really seriously, and that hurts your feeling. And you must have done something. I mean, right now you've already told us about how you were forced to do certain things in your family, right? And it's in Africa. I know that it's very hard for a woman to break their silence and move on and decide to do something else. How did you come to the point where you decided to make that decision and said, I want to leave. I want to get out of here. I don't want to be a part of this. This is not going to be good for me. I want to change my future.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because I was always a rebel growing up. I was always the kid who we went to church, and in my church you couldn't do some stuff to your hair, and I was always the kid who always did the wrong stuff to their hair. So I always was that kind of kid, and I am so grateful for that rebellion, rebel spirit in me, because that's what actually I used to live. I remember when I went, you say that in Africa it's not easy to just walk out and go, but I went to my mom and I told her, I said, I have to leave. I can't stay in this. Like, I have to leave. And she says, no, you can't. You can't, because no one will take care of you. And so there was this thing that, what are people going to say? Your husband loves you. You can't just leave a marriage because he loves you. Doesn't matter that he's got 100 wives. He loves you. And there was that. And I had made a decision that I didn't care what people thought. I didn't care what people thought. I was just going to do what made me happy. And I think it also stemmed from the fact that growing up, all I had was, what are people going to say in everything I did? What are people going to say? I felt like I was living my life for what people are going to say. So I developed that resistance and that rebellious spirit to say, I am going to do anything that's going to make those people talk. And definitely walking out of that marriage was one of those things.
I can totally agree with you on this. I happen to be from Africa as well. I'm a part of the country where I observe a lot of abuse of women a lot, and a lot of infidelity does happen a lot, and women, just like you rightly experienced, and that even your family don't want you to do anything about it, because it's a very hard thing to do, and it's probably going to bring some stigma to the family and all kind of stuff. And but that was a very hard decision, and I guess sometimes a little bit of rebellion is a good thing.
Yeah, I don't know if I would call it hard, actually. it was a difficult moment for me to go through that whole period, but I don't think the decision per se was hard. I decided,
Right.
I was like, I'm going, I'm moving, I'm going. And I am the type of person who, if I decide something, that's it. Like, I'm just moving on. I don't care. And I think that's really has been my saving grace, or that I make a decision. I don't wait. Because I always say, what's the worst that could happen? I make
Yeah.
a decision and I just follow it.
So this is one last question about your beginning journeys. So how did you come to the point where you realized that you need to go through this program that took you to Canada? How did you find out information about that? Because I believe there may be a lot of people, whether in Africa or even in this part of the world, that might not know much about what they could do to help themselves if they find themselves in a very difficult situation like you did. So how did you find this information, and what steps did you take to do that? And it seems like this happened a little bit rapidly for you.
Yeah, it actually did happen rapidly. What happened actually is during that time in Zimbabwe, there was the war of veterans. They were so powerful and strong, and they were of the ruling party, ZANU-PF at that time. And I was young, I was rebellious, I was the opposition, and I would talk to my friends, and we'll just give the opposition signs, and in the neighborhood. So I was known that I was of the opposition party. And
Uh-huh.
one day I was walking, and there's this guy who lived a few houses down our road, and he basically chased his dog after me, and he was a war veteran. So he literally chased, and I still have the the bite mark on my leg. And that's what happened. And then the next thing is I started hearing things like some of my friends disappearing, and people it was that period where youth was disappearing. And our neighbor said to me, you guys are in danger. You need to stop this whole MTC thing, because you're going to get in trouble. You're going to be disappearing and all that stuff, like everybody else. And it was honestly, it was a scary period. And then so I decided that, you know what, I have to leave. And as part of this opposition party, we were being told where we could go. So they told us, they said, oh, if you need help, just go to this place. So I went to this man who was helping us immigrate. And he said to me, well, where do you want to go? I said, I don't know. I just want to leave. And so he said, okay. And I remember, because I didn't have any knowledge, he said, well, you could go to Canada, or you could go to the UK. Then he says, the good thing is, there's a ticket to go to Canada, whatever, next few, and then the ticket go to UK, and I was like, I've always wanted to go to Paris.
Wow.
So I am so naive. I'm thinking if I just get on a plane, I'll just see France and Paris is like, I've always heard Paris is so beautiful. I want to go to Canada. And that's really how that decision was made.
So did you, just to let people understand this, so did you actually meet your goal of going to Paris, right? Did you start with that, because you didn't know how the whole process worked?
Yeah. So, interestingly enough, I go to France, and I met this lady from Cameroon. She was pregnant, and I say to her, well, we have 12 hours. Let's go see Paris. And she looks at me. She's like, have you ever been outside? I said, no. Do you have a visa? I said, no. She's
No.
like, well, how much do you have? And I said, well, $5. And then she's like, so you think you're going to go outside? You're just going to go stroll the streets of Paris and just come back in? It's not how it works, young lady. You're stuck here.
That's
I was
funny.
like, really? That's boring. I'm going to be at this airport for 12 hours. She's like,
Oh
yep.
my gosh.
Use that $5 to buy food. I was like, okay.
Wow. You had $5.
Yeah, that's all I had. That's all I had. Yeah.
So where did you get the $5 from?
Actually, this is a very interesting story. When I left, I had $100, which had been given to me by my brother-in-law. And then I go to, because I had never traveled before. So I go to
Right.
South Africa, and then they say to me, your passport and your visa and your ticket don't match. Something like
Oh,
that.
no.
Yeah. So they said, so you have to pay $100. We have to change your ticket to tomorrow. Then I was like, that's all I have. And then she said, and then her name was Atina. She used to work for Air France. And she says, well, they won't let you go in the plane without any money. So tomorrow, come and see me at 6 o'clock. Come and see me, okay? Then I said, okay. And I'm still looking for this girl because what she did for me was so awesome. And so she changed. I honestly still don't know what exactly she changed, but it had something to do with the ticket and the
Right.
return date or something like that. And it was $100, which was 600 rands at that time.
Uh-huh.
And so Atina changed that for me, and that meant I had $0. And I got onto the plane, and I just went. And inside the plane, I started talking to this guy I was sitting to, a white guy I was sitting to, and I'm like, I'm going to Canada, blah, blah, blah. He's like, have you ever been to Canada? I said, no. And then he says, well, let me show you. This is the money they have in Canada. And he showed me a $5 note. And then I said, can I have it?
Uh-huh. Because you were not afraid to ask, right?
Yeah, I wasn't. And then he's like, okay. And then he gave it to me. And that's the $5 I got.
Wow. Now that's a unique information right there, because I think sometimes people fail to realize that when there is always a will to do things, sometimes there's going to be a way for it. You just have to believe in it, and everything comes together. Some
And
of us that
ask.
are, yeah, that's a good one, because I spoke with another guest who had a very interesting story, but he emphasized this idea that we, the navigators, sometimes when we get here, we don't like to ask questions. We just assume things. And he talked about the idea that you need to ask questions. I'd like to delve into that just a little bit. Now, you started by asking people questions, even people you didn't know. How has that
Yeah.
helped you? How has that helped you when you got to now you left Zimbabwe? You're now in Montreal, and you're trying to find a way around. And I'm sure you didn't have any family there waiting for you, did you?
No, I didn't. And there was a bunch of us immigrants from Zimbabwe because a lot of refugees had just come at that time. And obviously, when you arrive, you befriend people who kind of just arrived at the same time. And literally, it's blind people just leading each other to the
Each other.
wrong place. Yeah. And, I want to stress on that point of asking. You have to find a mentor who has been in the country for a longer time. If you are just arriving in this country, in anything, you have to find a mentor, whether it's in business or what. And that's the same thing. I think we have pride. We feel that we shouldn't ask, or we don't want people to know our weaknesses. But there is nothing as important as asking and finding a mentor. Because let me tell you something. When I arrived here, I was going to go into school and study accounting. I had studied CIS back home, and I thought, okay, I'm going to go into school and study accounting. And this was in Montreal, which is all French. And I am so glad I had someone who I could say he was my mentor, I guess, at that time. He was a friend of a friend I had been connected to. He had been living in the United States for 6 years, and I was just new. And he told me, Tembi, let me tell you something, forget accounting right now. Go into nursing school, because with nursing, you're going to get a job right away. With your situation in Montreal, in accounting, you're going to have a hard time finding a job. And I'm not saying that accountants don't get jobs. They do get jobs.
Sure.
But he told me that just go into nursing and get a high paying job. And I remember telling him, I said, I will do that. And if you're right, I'll give you my first paycheck. And sure enough, I did that. We still are friends today up to now because of that advice he gave me. And I think there's so many things which we make mistakes about when we come here. We don't know what it's like. I didn't know what a credit card was. I didn't know that. Fortunately, I didn't fall into the trap of going into credit or debt. But I know a lot of people who did, because they didn't have advice. They didn't have mentors. So if you know someone, or if you are listening to this podcast, you can even reach out to Bassey and say, can you please help me? I just arrived. I am new. Or maybe you've been here for 10 years. He's been here for almost 30 years or 20 years now. Why don't you get advice from him? He probably knows something you don't know yet. So I think it's very important to ask for the way ahead.
Wow, Tembi, that's it's like you just leaped forward to the section that we want you to tell us some really good information, a piece of advice that we could take. So you just jumped way ahead of me now. So I'm really excited to hear that. But I want to piggyback on that particular subject of finding a mentor because although you find people, you can find mentors, but you still have to ask questions, though. You still have to ask, even though the mentors give you information, you have to do your own homework as well, don't you?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. You still have to, I mean, yes, mentors will give you guidance, but you do have to do a lot of homework. The good thing right now is there's Google. When we came, I guess Google was there, but we didn't know. It wasn't as popular as it is now. So you can just go and Google some of this stuff on your own and find out what really can help you with. But yes, definitely do your own research and make sure they're telling you the truth.
That's very good because that tie back to one concept that we are exploring and discussing and finding out, collecting information about this idea about the fact that you can get information, but that information might not be the right one for you. And sometimes you can find information from people, family, friends, or whoever you like to get it from. However, those people don't know more than what enough to really help you, right? So they don't. And so I call this the problem of single story syndrome. So sometimes you could find these pieces of advice. That's why it's very critical to ask questions. Even though people are telling you, sometimes it might not be their intention to give you information that
to mislead,
that you consider that they are misleading you, but that's the only information they know. That's the only thing they know. So they share that information with you, and you kind of go along with it without actually doing your own research with it. So I call that the problem of single story. And this, I believe, has led so many navigators into either challenges or problems, or the things that maybe people could have avoided, but just because they believed on one person telling them a particular thing, whether being advice on a career or whether being certain things. I mean, you're probably familiar with this idea. Could you shed some light about it? Have you experienced that, and how did you overcome that?
Yeah, I think I used to think it's a Zimbabwean problem, but I think it's a global problem. We're expected everything. So if somebody came to me and asked me about marriage, I would start giving them counseling, even though I've never been married. And if somebody started asking me about investing, I'll start giving them advice on investing, even though I've never bought a single property. I think that is really a challenge which humans we have as human beings. And I think it's a global challenge. And I think at the end of the day, you have to follow your gut. You have to follow your gut, and you have to listen to your instincts, because that's more powerful than anything else. But as we already spoke about this, start reading, read books, invest in your education, invest in your knowledge, and listen to podcasts like you probably listening to a podcast right now. Listen to different podcasts, because you're right. I remember asking somebody about investing when I moved to Edmonton, and they told me, as a Black person, you can never start a business here in North America. And I am so glad I didn't listen to that, because my gut told me, I think I can start something. And I did. And so there's always this stretch and this challenge where people are trying to be aspects of things they are not. And
Yeah, not
honestly, I used to think it was a Zimbabwean problem. I always say Zimbabweans are expected everything, but it's a
right.
global thing. We are, as people are expected everything. So when you get that advice, just verify it. Go to
Yeah,
Google and just Google, or even ask a second person. But Google is the best because Google is going to give you different answers, and then you can look at the source and
right.
see: is it a realtor telling you that is a good time to buy a house, or is it somebody who doesn't care if they sell a
Right.
house?
Wow. Well, I think you touched on two important ideas there. You have to trust but verify, right? Even if you
Mhm.
trust the people, then they're telling you this information, you have to do your homework. The second, the second concept that you've touched on there is the idea that education. Sometimes people look at education as going to school, but education is not about going to a classroom or sitting there. It's about getting out information that already been proven, has been given by others who have been experts in these areas and they are known worldwide. And this could be done through books, through Google, as you rightly said, and listening to podcasts could be one of them. And a lot of times we are so busy when we get to this good, great country that we have, and we just don't get involved, get ourselves, our minds educated, feed our brain with new ideas and new things so that we could find new opportunities that may come out of there. So I think it's worth stressing that navigators, yes, we get here, life seems so good because when we compare it to where we came from, it seems like it's an amazing environment, right? But we still have a lot of work to do. It looks like you have something to say about that.
Yes, I love what you said. The first thing you said education is not school and it's not degrees, and I love that. It's not being in classroom because let me tell you something. My son is 5 years old, 6 years old now, and he's supposed to be in kindergarten. And I took him out of kindergarten to come here to Zimbabwe. And I said to the teacher, well, I'm sorry that he's going to be missing school. And then the principal and the teachers all said, oh, no, he's going to learn way more than being seated here in class listening to me all day. Just by
Right.
being in Zimbabwe, that experience of coming out. So I want navigators listening here to take their experience of living Nigeria or Africa or wherever it is that you come from and coming to this country or wherever you are right now to a new country as a learning experience, as another degree. I'll never forget somebody who once told me when I first arrived that when you move to a new country, treat of it as if you are a baby being born.
Right.
The first 3 years or 4 years, you're learning to crawl, and then you learn
Right.
to walk, and then you learn to run.
Right.
And then you finally kind of get your grounding after 4 years or 5 years. It doesn't matter
Yeah.
even if it's me moving to Africa or it's somebody from Africa moving to North America. It's like that. So teach it this as your learning experience. Teach it as, oh my God, I am here to learn so much from being here in North America for however long. And the first 3 years, you are learning. You are in class
That's
because
exactly
the
right.
world is an oyster and you
Mhm.
are going to be absorbing it and learning during that time.
Wow. That's so great. We've been talking about very serious stuff since we started, and I like to have some fun here a little bit, okay? If,
Okay.
if you like some fun, I love to have some fun with this. Um, so, I mean, we all know that when we come to a new country, when we get to somewhere, there are a lot of things that really just stump us. Okay, we just don't get it. And after some time, we get it, and we are like, "What? Somebody, I should have known that." Well, I want you to tell us some of those moments where I call comical moments of your journeys. I want you to tell us some of those. I mean, that you just got stumped and then eventually you realize, what? I can't even believe I thought that. What are some of those
Yeah.
moments?
Oh, there's so many of them. Oh my God. The first one actually it was when I was right coming from the airport, where in this taxi which was taking us to the YMCA, and I saw a car written 167. And I'm like, oh my God, I could buy a car for $167. So I'm so excited, and I'm telling the people who was in my car, like, I'm going to buy a car next week because I'm going to get a job and I'm going to make $167 and I'm going to buy a car. And so as I was looking for jobs, you know how when you look for jobs, it tells $15 an hour, $10 an hour. So I'm calculating, I'm like, okay, I'm not going to work. I'm going to work 100 hours this week. I won't sleep. That means I will make $1,000 a week. That means I can buy 10 cars and send them to my mom. And I was so excited. It was so funny. We always joke about this with this friend of mine who was with me when we came. Because well, I say, remember when we wanted to buy a car? It was only 167. We didn't realize I said 167 a week for how many ever weeks it's going to be. We thought it was just 167. So those are some of the things which, arrogance. It's so interesting when you're arrogant and ignorant.
Ignorance, right?
It's nice. It's nice to be in that position because you see possibilities. And I actually think we should be in that position so many times in our life. Because I think when you're starting, it's like when you're starting a business, you have this arrogance that anything is possible. When you're coming to North America, you have this arrogance that, oh my God, I will buy my own aeroplane. And you come in here, you look at people who don't have a house, you're like, what are they doing? What have they been doing all these years?
Right.
I mean, I remember my cousin saying, oh yeah, I'm surprised people don't have houses and cars. Like, I'm going to buy mine within 2 months. I'm like, okay, you will. That arrogance is good because it makes us dream big. But at the same time, it can be a killer for us. So that was one of the situations which I was in.
Wow. That's so funny. I'm trying not to laugh so hard. Probably I will laugh after this program, but that was so much fun. I love to collect this information because I like people to connect with this and know that, well, it's not that bad to make mistakes and to have these crazy moments. But I really do love what you said at the end of it, that that arrogance that we have when we first get here, somehow some of the light of that arrogance get dimmed over time. What do you attribute to that? What causes that light of, we want to go out and just do it and just get it done, and wondering why are these people not having 10 cars and why are these people not having 10 houses and all that stuff? But at some point, it's just start to go down.
It dies. It
dies. What caused that?
I think it's because we're not connected to our why. That's something which I think has really been a reminder for me in the past few years. When you are connected, when you have a big why, and if your big why, by why I mean your purpose, if your big purpose is all about making money and buying 10 houses and buying 10 cars, that passion is going to die. But if you've got a bigger purpose, like build a school in your village, help the poor people who you left back home, empower your family. I think that really keeps driving us because keeps thinking, if I don't do this, I would have left my passion and my purpose. And I think it's very important to actually write it down. One of the things I wrote down when I first arrived here, actually I wrote this in the airplane, was PAWS. It stood for Prominent Association of Widows, Divorcees, and Spinsters. I know it's funny, but I was so passionate about helping women. I was so passionate about helping women. And that passion kind of died. And it was revived, but I kept going back to it. So I think we should have a bigger purpose in us, which is bigger than us, which is bigger than a house, which is bigger than a car, which is bigger than a jet, a private jet, which is bigger than 5 million. A passion which says, I really want to build a school in my village. And as long as you don't fulfill that passion, you will keep revisiting it after a few years. You might forget for a year, but after a few years, like, I still haven't built that school. I wish I could build that school. And it's a big thing such that it keeps driving you and driving you, because money can only drive you so far, but a bigger purpose will keep driving you. I think that's what it is.
Wow, that right there is a big nugget of wisdom that you just impart, because I think most of the time we always feel like it's only big corporations like have the big whys, but connecting with people now, talking about the idea that we as individuals, especially navigators, because we know why we came here, we know where we came from, and we have to have defined what our why is in order to be able to do stuff that is big and more successful. I guess I talk about the idea of defining success. I mean, you just mentioned there that money is not the only thing that defines success, but when you can connect with your big why, which I think we're going to go into that, because right now what you are doing, you are reconnecting to your big why. But let's not talk about that for now. I'm going to leave that because I have a place where you're going to talk about that. And for now, I just want to tell the Navigators Nation that we have been listening to Thembi Becker, and she's been an amazing host, guest for us today, and she's given us a whole lot of information. And I think this is so much fun, and we are learning a lot. And I hope this you'll find that she is a great resource that we've decided to bring on the show, because I just knew that she has a lot to offer here. Thank you, Becca, for Thembi, for coming to our program, and the Navigators Nation would be very glad that they have a chance to hear about your navigating story. Navigators, we have been listening to the amazing journey of Thembi Becker. Thembi talked about some action items that each navigator can implement right away to change the course of their journey. Let's recap 3 important ones. Number 1, find a mentor if you do not already have one. This is a great point. Navigators, have you ever thought about why medical doctors go through residency program? Yes, 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 they are getting mentoring from other experienced doctors. Yes, everyone do need a mentor. If you come here and wander around, it may take you way too long to get to where you need to be. Use Becker's strategy. Shortcut your journey to success. Find a mentor. Number 2, ask questions. Do not just assume that you know everything. You know all the answers. Ask questions and it will help. Number 3, read and educate yourself about your new community. Becky said education only doesn't come from the classroom, it comes from everywhere. Read books, podcasts, wherever you can find information, take advantage of it. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Nadvigators Podcast. Since you have made it this far, I will take that you like what we are doing here. So, Navigators, I have a question for you. What is your navigating story? I'd like to tell your navigating story before it gets lost forever. Who knows? Your posterity will one day wonder where their story began, and you may not be there to tell it. Don't delay. Reserve your space to tell your story and have it recorded on the pages of history, because you are the modern American explorer. Send me an email to guest@natcast.com or go to natcast.com and click on the microphone icon on there to get started. For now, go listen to the other episodes that we've recorded on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, or wherever you listen to podcasts. I really appreciate your feedback and support. Please subscribe while you are there, write a review, and while I look forward to catching you on the next episode, remember, none of us is as smart as all of us. And be good to people you meet on your way up.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode of the Nadvigators Podcast, Navigating the American Dream with Bassey Simon. For more information about our stories, our guests, or how to get involved and share your navigating story, head over to our website at nadcast.com. That's NADCAST.com for more information. Continue the conversation on Facebook.com/Nadvigators. Don't forget to leave us a 5-star rating on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, or on your favorite podcast listening platform so others can find us and enjoy the show too.